So welcome to the House of PMO's product launch. It's a new qualification called the Essentials for PMO Administrators. And what we're going to take you through today is obviously about that qualification. If you've got any questions as we're going through this, you can absolutely just pop them into chat, or you can see the Q&A part of the webinar functionality as well. You can pop your answers in there and we'll pick them up as we go through. And just before we get going, I'll just tell you a little bit about me if you've not come across House of PMO or PMO Flashmob before. I'm Lindsay. Did used to work as a PMO manager, PMO analyst, project coordinator a fair few years ago. And then I set up a business with another director around recruitment, project management recruitment. And I specialised in the PMO recruitment side of stuff, and done that for many, many years. I've also done a lot of careers advice, write careers columns for PMI, and got involved in editing a book, which so had lots of different writing experiences. Started PMO Flashmob 2000 and I think it's about 2013. Eileen and I have known each other for much longer than that, and together we've been building Flashmob PMO conference, doing training, and also obviously starting House of PMO. So a lot of things running through there, but you can guarantee that it's been PMO all the time, and thrilled that we're here today sharing the news with you about the qualifications. Eileen?
So yes, Sam, the other half of the Eileen and Lindsay bit. So my name's Eileen Roden. Again, been around PMOs all of my working life, was a PMO manager, but have for the last kind of 15 years been working as a trainer and consultant. So actually working with lots of other PMO managers and PMO people to establish their PMOs and make sure they're delivering the services that they want, as well as kind of doing some project and program management training to improve working with the PMOs to improve delivery capability within their organizations. So Lindsay and I actually met, interestingly, we met at a PMO event. We were, as our reputation continues to be, the last people standing, you know, kind of enjoying speaking to anybody and everybody around PMO activities, PMO resourcing, PMO career paths, PMO training, about kind of what they need, what they want, and then have worked very hard through lots of different channels, focusing kind of more recently on the Flashmob at the conference to provide an opportunity for PMO individuals to get together and talk about and learn about what they need to be successful in their own careers, but also to make their PMO successful and value add for their organizations. So this is setting up the House of PMOs we did earlier this year, and now kind of continue to kind of drive that forward. It's something that Lindsay and I have been working together on for a long time now.
So in the next, probably not an hour, but in the next 40 minutes or so, we will be covering a number of different aspects, but all go into telling you about the qualification. So just a little bit of a background in terms of where the House of PMO is coming from, the PMO competency framework, if you're not familiar with that. And then we'll get into the examinations, the certifications, of courses around the essentials for PMO administrators. And then just a little bit more about what happens from this point onwards. In terms of the House of PMO, we've not disappeared overnight. As Eileen has said, we've known each other for a number of years and then been involved together in running different voluntary type events and activities and things around PMOs. Became a little bit more formal when we started PMO Flashmobs. And then from PMO Flashmob, we've kind of evolved now because of the publication of the PMO competency framework, which we'll talk about in a second. But the House of PMO has been something that Eileen and I have wanted to do for years. It's essentially somewhere where PMO professionals can help to develop themselves, support the development of others, and hopefully contribute to the development of the PMO profession. we've been totally passionate about this for many years, and know that PMO has a lot to offer organisations. There's lots of people out there that are already working within PMOs, and it continues to grow. And one of the things that that comes from that, and one they've always wanted to do, is to focus more on the PMO role, because there's so many people out there, so many organisations that don't really get the PMO role. And for people that are wanting to work within it and to progress, it's the support that's required for those people to be able to do that. So we launched the House of PMO officially just a couple of weeks ago, and already we're over 500 members. And it is a professional body for people working in PMOs. And in order to be able to be a professional body, there's a number of things that need to be in place, such as things like professional standards, which is where the PMO competency framework fits really lovely into that piece. There's the bits around development in terms of qualifications and examinations, which is what we're talking about with you today. The ability to access great content, to be able to meet other people, to go to events, to have an annual conference, all of those things nicely put together under a new roof, which is the House of PMO. So if you're not already a free member, you can go along and do that right now. So in terms of the PMO competency framework, so this has been 3 years in the making. So from the actual reality of saying, right, we're definitely going to do this, it's taken 3 years in terms of a community effort from people that were part of PMO Flash Mob, and people that were interested in not only developing something or being part of something that would help themselves, but also something that they could use back in the workplace for their wider PMO teams, and ultimately to help push forward with the development around PMOs, just generally, just globally. You know, we thought, let's do this little project. So it's something we wanted to do for a while. So if you just look onto the next slide. So what we've essentially come up with over the 3 years is, and it was launched in February this year, is a competency framework which ultimately allows people within a PMO to assess themselves, to see how they their skills and experience stack up in terms of the different competencies that are being created through the competency framework. We've also, within that framework, is a set of 4 different role profiles, which essentially cover off from the entry level up to a senior level. But also we've got in there not only competencies, but knowledge, skills and behaviours that are required in order to be able to do the job well. Now, this has done a number of things. Number one, it's allowed us to actually have in the marketplace, here's some role profiles, and hopefully organisations will be able to pick these up and to use them and to help them when it comes to things like recruitment. And hopefully it'll help you as individuals working within PMO to have a marketplace that's maybe a little bit more educated in what it is that you do. What it's also allowed us to do in terms of the competency areas is to set some established standards around, well, what are the different competencies and what are the different PMO services that require the competencies. And it's allowed us to look at the knowledge and the skills and behaviours that wrap around the things that we do. So the competency framework is something that you as an individual can take, people in your team can take, and also as a manager, you can then use that in order to help people understand where their gaps may be, or where their aspirations might lie and how to get there. So in terms of the competency framework, it was a big step in terms of where we were going in terms of House of PMO. And in order to be able to get to the point where we might think that qualifications and examinations would come, we really needed something like this in place in order to be able to do that. So next slide. Just a little bit more detail about what's in the competency framework in terms of the competencies, because it's these things that are then lay the foundation for the courses and the qualifications. So there's 4 domain areas, which is administration, delivery support, PMO management, and P3M enabling. So there's 24 across these domains. If you just hit the next button, Eileen, we can just see a little bit more detail about what those competencies are within these domains. So you can see from the P3M delivery support, but that's all about supporting projects and programs. And all those things there that you'll see, it's probably fairly common in terms of what you would expect in terms of the job that you do. The PMO management one is about the setup, the design, the setup, the running and transforming and closing. So that's all the management type activities that go into managing a PMO. And the P3M enabling is more about the setting up the ecosystem that allows you as a PMO to support delivery within an organization. So these are the things that you put in place, like the methods, or the tools that you may be putting in place, or the governance frameworks, those kind of things. And then finally is the administration, which is what we're focusing on today with the launch of the Essentials for PMO Administration. Can you go into the next slide? What we're also conscious of with the PMO competency framework is that we recognise that it's not the only competencies that good PMO people need within their work. And we reference 6 other areas that sit in other competency frameworks in other professions. So for example, we recognise that you may be working in PMO and, for example, asked to implement a tool, and you may use some project management competencies to run that implementation as a project. And therefore you would probably reference some of the project management competency frameworks that are out there. And what it also does, this diagram, is just shows the sheer breadth and depth that exists in a PMO professional's life, in the work life, in terms of the things that they need to know and understand and to do and to perform. Next slide. So as we mentioned in the a few minutes ago, that the PMO competency framework has 4 clearly defined role profiles within it. Now, the interesting thing is about this is, like I said, it gives a standard, in that it gives a purpose for the role, the tasks and activities that are carried out by this by these roles. And it's the role profiles that started to give the building blocks in terms of the qualifications. So Eileen's going to start to take us through from the points where the role profile is to how we've got to today's launch with the certifications.
Thanks, Lindsay. So these are the 4 roles that we're playing with, and we do intend by the end of the year to create a suite of products called the House of PMO Essentials. And what that will do, that will create a certification for individuals who are going into or have just kind of started out on each of these 4 roles. And it'll be based on the role profiles that sit within the competency framework, and it will give them the knowledge and the kind of the entry level kind of knowledge, skills and experience, the knowledge, skills that they need in order to kind of start doing their role. So we're not assessing competency. We're not saying these are a competent PMO administrators or a competent PMO analyst. We're going to be saying, you know, you've got the knowledge and skills to start doing that role. So this is where this Essentials suite comes from. And the first one that we're going ahead with is the Essentials for PMO Administrators. Now, there is a reason why we've chosen to kind of go with the PMO Administrators first. It's because earlier on this year, House of PMO actually purchased a certification that has already been out there on the marketplace. Interestingly, Lindsay and I did this BCS certification over, back in, I think it was launched in 1999, and we did it late 99, early 2000. So we were some of the first delegates to go through that. And we've been involved and kind of been looking at kind of where we wanted to go with certification, recognize that this product could do with some more development, bring up to date, because as we know, the kind of the roles within the PMO have really exploded over the last kind of 3 to 5 years. So we had some conversations with BCS and we have purchased that certification. So this kind of first level certification is really a kind of a reinvigorated version of that BCS certification. And it's aimed at individuals who have an interest in, but potentially no project management knowledge. So they want to come into either project management or they want to come in and work in a PMO. They may have some kind of business knowledge and some kind of administration experience. And this is really kind of looking at that entry level role. And if we have a look at the role profile, you can kind of see in a little bit more detail in terms of what the PMO administrator role is. So this is, and one of the conversations you always have is kind of, well, do PMO people just do admin? And we say, well, they do admin, they don't just do admin. And the admin that they do should be tailored, and it should be around project, program, and portfolio management. So it may involve kind of ordering stationery, but actually it's stationery for the project. But it does also require a knowledge of things like the status reporting, setup of projects and programs, so you understand the context within which you're working, that you can attend knowledgeably meetings that are and workshops, things like a risk identification workshop or a change board meeting, and have some context to the administration service that you're providing to that project, program, or portfolio. So really this is kind of looking, as I said, that kind of entry level role for PMO administrators, and successful completion of the exam means the delegates will have demonstrated that they have the essential knowledge and understanding to undertake that role. Now, I think there is one important bit that I've kind of just missed off there, which we haven't kind of highlighted, is that although we were kind of happy kind of working through this kind of certification, what we wanted to do was to make sure that that was going to be available and not kind of limited by the kind of the number of people we've got working here at the House of PMO. So we made a conscious choice to go and partner with APMG, who have an international reputation and credibility in delivering certification. So they've been, I have to say, you know, kind of hats off to APMG. They've been really good in supporting us to get to this point. So people will people will attend the training courses, and then APMG will be the people who administer those exams. So that kind of keeps us honest in terms of the House of PMO. Just make sure that the exams are to a particular standard, and that you have access to them wherever you sit in the world, and usually kind of whatever time zone that you're working in. So the actual exams there will be administered by APMG, and this lovely little thing that you see on the left hand side will be the certified badge you get when you completed your exam. So you see all of those people with their accreditations and their badges on their signatures and on LinkedIn. You too will be furnished with a badge if you're successful in the exam. So the from a training content, what I'm just going to do, I'm just going to kind of take you through, and just so people understand what to expect with the training. And I have to say, and Lindsay's kind of going to come on to this in the next section, is that House of PMO won't actually be delivering the training. What we've done is we've set up the scheme, and that scheme is available to other people to deliver, but they will all work through the same syllabus and all be doing the same examination. So I'm basically going to just give you a little bit more detail about what's happening from a syllabus and content perspective. So we've got three core texts now. Before everybody goes into a blind panic and says, hold on a minute, that means I'm going to have to pay for my courses. I'm all now going to have to spend hundreds of pounds on textbook. There's a couple of things to say. In terms of the Praxis framework, the Praxis framework is available free of charge online. So www.praxisframework.org will give you access to all of that. The cost of the competency framework and the service catalogue together are not the same cost as some of the other best management practice textbooks. So still very reasonable. And what we've said and what we've done with certainly the administrator materials is that you should, with a good training provider and the course materials, you don't necessarily need to buy the core text to do the administrator examination. So that'll be covered off in the courses. However, as ever, we would, and as you can see behind me, I'm a big advocate of having kind of paper copies, certainly provide some additional content. So just take you through kind of why we've got kind of three texts for the examination. Firstly, the competency framework, because you obviously need to kind of understand the competencies that we're kind of working towards and trying to bolster on this particular set of certification. And secondly is the PMO service catalogue. Now, this is a book that's been written by a friend of ours, a colleague of ours, called Stuart Dixon. So this is really probably the most comprehensive book out there at the moment that lists and describe the services that can be provided by the PMO. Now, it's not a small book, and we certainly don't expect everybody to know every single service within that service catalogue. And what we've done for each of the certifications is we've picked out certain services that we think are representative of what that particular role would undertake, but they're all based from this PMO service catalogue. And as we said, in order to be able to do, even the PMO administrators, Ron, we need a level of understanding about project program and portfolio management. And we didn't, and when we wrote the competency framework, we deliberately stayed method independent. So it references terminology from lots of different kind of methodologies and framework, both waterfall and an agile framework. So we needed access to some project management knowledge and information, and with a reference text that was examinable. And so again, because Praxis is free to use, it seemed like a good one to kind of latch onto. Now, that's not saying that the certification, the competency framework, the service catalogue is only applicable to people who follow the Praxis framework. It's absolutely applicable to any and every framework that we will use across our organisations. And it's interesting, and it's part of the conversation will be on all 4 of the courses, is about how do we take, this kind of generic stuff around PMO administration and apply that in different contexts. So it's been from my perspective, in terms of kind of starting to pull some of this together, about marrying up texts and environments that are not necessarily weren't designed to sit comfortably together. And the conversation as well, that's exactly where we are in the world when we're in a role where we've perhaps kind of done certain certifications and certain other certifications from different professional bodies. So it might be the APM, we've done a bit of kind of Prince 2, and then we've done kind of better business cases. How do we kind of marry that together? And hopefully what we've done on the course is given enough breadth of understanding of the different elements that you'll be able to take them and apply them in all of the different situations that you currently work in or look to work in. So those are as I say, the 3 core tests from the administrator. They're not essential, but if you do choose to purchase them, and again, the training providers will make a decision as to whether they want to provide them or add them as additional extras on the course. So the learning objectives of the course, again, align to kind of what we said a successful candidate will be able to demonstrate. The idea is that we will understand the role of the PMO administrator. We'll talk about the context within which those administrators work. So what we're talking about there is in a project and program management domain or portfolio domain, but also in terms of potentially a centre of excellence. So we'll talk a bit about project program portfolio management. We'll talk a bit about the kind of the various kind of PMOs that you might work in. We'll cover off the 4 key roles and the interaction between them, and then we'll kind of walk through some of the kind of the competencies that are required to do that particular role. So these are the 4 areas of the syllabus. The context, the roles, nothing surprising there. P3M administration is a focus on the P3M administration competence. But what we recognize is that if you're going to be a P3M administrator, the likelihood is you'll also be doing some delivery support. So we have selected what we recognize as the most common ones, so the most common kind of competencies, the most common activities and delivery support that P3M administrators start with, and the other support ones will be covered off in the analyst course when that comes out in due course. So looking at the context, we will go through because we recognize that people who are coming to this certification, coming to the role of PMO administrator, their likelihood of have seen and heard about project and program management in their organization. They might know some kind of bits of terminology. So we will spend really the first day consolidating that knowledge and providing us with a kind of a firm foundation for applying our knowledge in a project program portfolio perspective. So we'll talk about life cycles, we'll talk about the difference between waterfall and agile projects, we'll talk about organization structures and how they sit separately from business as usual. We'll call off some kind of the key documentation, as well as really talking about things like kind of PMO services and what the service catalogue is all about. So really that's kind of the first day, looking at the overall context of working. We'll then spend some time going through each of the 4 roles. So as Lindsay said, each of those roles have got some kind of key a role purpose. We'll talk a bit about the career paths, that how they kind of linked together, and then we'll spend more time going into the detail of the P3M administrator role description. So we'll go into more detail about the skills, knowledge and behaviors that are expected in that role. So again, you know, just to kind of reinforce some of the things we did in the competency framework, it's all well and good being able to produce a status report, but in order to be able to do that week in, week out and continue working comfortably with the project managers and the project team, you need to be able to kind of demonstrate some of those behaviours. So unashamedly, the course very much contains a large section on applying our knowledge with the right behaviours associated with that. So I've just realised those the slides are in the wrong order. So let me just kind of see, this is a problem, is we've got a problem with the slide. So we'll cover these off and kind of correct them before we send them out. So P3M administration, we'll talk about the definition and description of those competencies. We'll look at the key terms and artifacts. So again, what we said is that for lots of different methodologies, lots of different organizations, we will do a document that is essentially contains information on the project and how we're going to deliver that project. In some organizations that might be called a PID, in some organizations that's called a playbook, in some organizations that might be called a project delivery plan. So again, what we've tried to do is kind of cover off some of those kind of key artifacts, and we can contextualize that. And then we look at what are the kind of specific services that this competency can be used to deliver, as well as the knowledge and behavior. So while we're on this page as well, you'll see there we've picked the 6 delivery support competencies that we will be also covering off in some detail. So again, when we develop the competency framework and some work we've done in the kind of the flash mob and with our community and looking at what are the most common things that individuals and when they start coming in, these are the 6 elements that have been picked up. So we'll be covering off those certifications also. So back over to Lindsay then, in terms of talking about who gets to deliver the training and how that's managed and run.
Okay, so as Eileen had said, I mean, House of PMO has been responsible for creating the structure and the content of the training, working with APMG in order to make sure that the examinations are structured in a great way, high standard, all that kind of good stuff. And then that leaves that, well, how can you do the course? So APMG actually accredit training organizations, so they call them ATOs, accredited training organizations, in order to deliver the training courses. So we've launched today in terms of, but it is now available for training organizations to pick up this course. But of course, they need to be accredited by APMG in order to be able to do so. So they go through a process just to make sure that they've got the the high quality offering to the marketplace. If you just want to just hit onto the next slide, Eileen. So essentially, Any training organisation can apply to become an ATO, and that's the the straightforward training organisations that already have a portfolio, but also organisations that have a training department can also deliver the course. So we've tended to see the old BCS course being picked up by larger firms like consulting firms, and actually deliver the course themselves. So anybody in that field can become an accredited trainer as well by going through the same process. Now, the interesting thing is with the ATOs is that they're picking up these courses to run alongside their project management program and portfolio management offerings they already have. And what's been interesting in terms of the questions that we've got in Eileen, we've actually had one in already, which was everybody knows about the P3O course, yeah, and obviously training organisations are already delivering that offering. Just a question then. So the essentials for PMO administrators, if you were to do this course, but you've already done, say, P3O, or you haven't done P3O and you're thinking about this one, what's the difference? Can you give people an
Okay,
overview?
and to be fair, I've just kind of put an answer there in chat. I think I also kind of hands up that I'm also the lead author of P3O, and certainly this is not a replacement for P3O course, and will sit, and the manager's course as well will sit kind of aligned to that. So the P3O course is really looking about, it provides some generic information on project, program and portfolio officers in your organization, and is really kind of moving people from doing individual PMOs kind of scattered around the organization to say, actually, we need to think more strategically about how we provide a holistic design of PMO support across our organization to support strategy development. And then we'll take you through the life cycle and the activities you need in order to do that. Now, that is absolutely part of a PMO manager's role, and it provides information on, if you're working in a PMO, it helps you kind of understand why your PMO is there and how it contributes to the organization. The House of PMO certification, this essential certification, is much more based on individuals. So as an individual, what do I need to do my role? What is the kind of information and skills that I need? How do I build up my individual competence in order to be able to do my job better? So as I say, I see these very much as complementary rather than kind of, well, I will do one or the other.
We have also got another question that, if you wouldn't mind picking this one up as well, Eileen. We've talked already about the course being agnostic. So in terms of this course, we've got the question is it a general course or is it to a specific methodology? I think you've made it clear that it's absolutely not.
We've not. Yeah, no, we've not tied it to something like kind of Prince 2 or the APM methodology or the PMI methodology or Praxis methodology. What we've said in terms of, I could be a PMO administrator in any one of those environments, or in some very large organizations where they have a mixture of all of those. So we're saying that there is, if you go back to the kind of the role of the PMO administrator, it is provide support to the project manager and the project team, or the program manager and the program team. So we try to introduce when we talk about the terms and artifacts, just start to recognize where some of those kind of differences are. And when we look at the indicators in the competency framework, it says, well, actually, these are the types of things that we would expect you to be able to do if you were working and delivering services to a project. These are the kind of services that we would expect you to deliver when you're supporting a program. And so on the course, and what's included in the materials is examples of services in all of those different contexts. So the one we don't cover off, to be fair, is the Centre of Excellence. It tends to be project programs and portfolios at this level, because we're not necessarily going to be developing some of the standards. So there is we do cover. I would suggest it's method agnostic or Catholic, depending on your kind of the terminology. Lindsay and I have had lots of conversations whether we're agnostic or Catholic in our views. Catholic with a small c as opposed to a big C.
Yeah.
Can I also pick up, there's a question there about other courses daisy chained, and I love daisy, so I love the phrase daisy chained. So The idea is that once we get past the PMO Administrators course, which has got no prerequisites at all, once we get to the PMO Analyst course, we will expect you to have some basic project management understanding. And again, we will kind of say, well, if you've done the PMO Administrators course, that's going to be enough, so that'll be fine. But if you've got something like a Prince2 Foundation course or the APM PFQ or something, or introduce the foundation in agile project management. So just because we will not have time on the analyst course to go back and introduce all of the basic project management stuff, so we will want to and the ATOs will be asked to kind of just confirm that they've got some basic project management knowledge before they sign up onto, say, the analyst course or the manager's course.
Okay, so if you just next slide, just to let you know now, so if you're interested in doing the courses, or you're interested if you're a manager thinking about people within your course, Eileen, if you can just move us on to the next slide, you'll be able to see exactly where you can get more information from, which is apmginternational.com. And they have a new part of their website under certifications called House of PMO Essentials. So that's the place marker. This is number one. This is level one, the Essentials for PMO Administrator. There's a brochure there that you can download, but also the House of PMO does have a qualifications section as well. We will be adding in, more and more stuff around the courses as they develop, as more ATOs come on board, and generally just keep you up to date with how things are progressing in terms of the training. And also obviously what's going to be happening in terms of the next levels coming on board as well. If you'd like to visit APMG, you'll be able to also see the training providers coming on board, and then you'll be able to take a look at the individual ATOs to understand, how are they delivering the courses, how many days, how much money, all of those kind of things will come out from the ATOs.
Yeah. And one of the things that we'll be doing at the House of PMO is, as the ATOs get kind of come on board, we will be kind of letting people know that there's another ATO now who signed up who you can get your courses from. So the idea is that these courses will be delivered by a whole range of different training organisations across the globe.
And just there's one final question about, the style of this course was always, and certainly for Eileen and I thinking about this entry level, certainly me, I do remember what it was like starting the role and not having a clue really about the ins and outs of project management and what the wider world was doing. And this course is really has been designed to help people that might be starting in a PMO administration role pretty much for the first time. It's also good for graduates who are starting within your organization that will eventually, go around the business doing various different roles as they want, but also good for graduates. But it's also good for people that might not necessarily be thinking about a PMO's career, but actually they're interested in potentially being a project manager, say. Again, it's been made to be something where it's not totally theoretical. There's got to be the practical elements in here that you can go back into your workplace and say, right, okay, so issue logs, this is why we've got them, this is what I need to be doing with it. And that's what we've always wanted to be able to get to. So that's why this is the format that we've gone for. Any other questions? You've got any one about idea of cost? No, there's no. And the way that it works is from a what we're called the scheme owners. We don't set that kind of stuff that comes out of from APMG and the training organisations. But
yeah, each training organisation will decide on how much they want to charge for the course delivery. So the exam fees are fixed with APMG. And again, that depends on kind of whereabouts in the world you are, but the training providers will set the prices for the courses.
Yeah. And any ideas how long it might be before the ATOs actually launch their courses?
We're expecting a number of ATOs to launch within the next week. So we've certainly had quite a bit of interest. So within the next week, we should see 2 or 3 ATOs coming on board.
If you visit the APMG website and look for the House of PMO Essentials, you'll be able to see on that page is the brochure to download, but it will also show you the training providers on that page. So just keep hitting refresh. Okay, I think that's all the questions that we've had. Hopefully it's given you an insight into where we are right now. I do hope that if you're a manager of people, but you think that you've got people that would be ideal for this, we hope that you think it ticks all your boxes as managers bringing on people. And if you're thinking about getting into PMO, you know, it's just the ideal first step. And we look forward to bringing you news about the next levels as they come on board. And yeah, that's it. Thank you very much.